Yeah, we had started the blessing of what they call redemption here. And as I mentioned to you, this is in the 6 petitions that are local for individuals, for the communities, for their time, for their particular places in geography. This is not a plea for the Messiah. That comes later, in the end of the blessings, which are national. So here we picture ourselves, and now with these circumstances we're living in today, not difficult to picture ourselves under pressure, with deprivations and also with open attacks. And we're being asked, as I said yesterday, not just to be, the day before, to be saved, but to be redeemed, which means to be restored to an earlier condition. So it's not enough to just wish that suddenly all the Arab armies should become powerless. That would be a new situation. What we want is to go back to a position. Now, that's the position of King David, or the position of Solomon, at the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, when there was relative independence, only relative, but was relative independence, and we had the temple, and the political organization was based on principles of Torah. Also something that you could go back to. I don't know of any commentaries that specify what it is we want to go back to, but the idea is to look at the pressures and look at the dangers and to think in terms of the positive alternative, not just ridding ourselves of the pressures and dangers. Imagine a person in the hospital. What is he wishing for? Well, he might be wishing to get out of the hospital. But he might be thinking, what was I doing before I got sick? Oh, I was doing various mitzvos, I was learning Torah. I want to get back to that, because that's what being sick prevents me from doing. And it's that kind of more complete picture of the positive reality that we want when we think about this. And I want to add one more remark because of the current situation. We are in a situation of crisis and a situation of danger. And what we pray for, I think, is very important. I'm not going to go through a whole psychological analysis, the kinds of emotions we have, the kinds of identifications we have. I think one simple rule, which I heard from my oldest son, is this. We want to daven, we want to pray for a sanctification of God's name. Locally and globally. And as an interim and also as the ultimate goal. We want the result to be one where people say, thanks to the Creator that this happened. And if you're imagining even what the army should do tomorrow, let alone what the ultimate disposition should be, imagine something happening and the result not being, let's give thanks to the Creator, that is not something that you should pray for. Or pray something in addition, that it should happen in a certain way, that should be the outcome. Because that's the only outcome that can really contribute to our safety, to our security. That's the only outcome that will contribute to our relationship with the Creator. And whatever outcome you're thinking of, if it doesn't happen, doesn't have that impact. So, for example, when the pages blew up, almost no one said, thank the Creator. They were so smart. They were so clever. And they were so subtle, and they managed to fool everybody, and they trapped themselves with their own machines. And not a word about there being divine providence and a Creator who's running the world and making things happen. So from our point of view, that event as it stands can't be regarded as a success because it did not increase people's appreciation of the Creator and their relationship to the Creator. It's not easy to keep that in mind. A lot of other emotions are engaged in this experience, but I think that's a goal. So When we ask for the redemption, we want redemption with an open hand. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Next blessing. Your title here in English, I think, is very important and very revealing. Health and healing. And as an introduction here, let's get the blue books. I want to show you something in a verse in the Torah, and how Rashi takes it to establish the principle that's involved here. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, we're on page 383. This is the end of chapter 15 in the book of Exodus. I'm going to read you a verse, and I'm going to read it with a literal translation, which is a little different from the Art Scroll. This is verse 26. He said, that's God speaking, if you hearken diligently, hearken means to listen to and to pay attention to, the voice of your Hashem, your God, and do what is just in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and observe all his decrees, then any of the diseases that I placed upon Egypt, I will not bring upon you, for I am Hashem, your healer, is what they write. Now, does that sound right to you? Let's try it again. If you keep all the commandments and everything else, then any of the diseases that I placed upon Egypt, I will not bring upon you, for I am your Hashem, your healer. Does that sound right? What does it mean to heal? Who do you heal? People who are sick. Here it says, you won't get sick. I won't have those diseases come on you. Well, if I don't have those diseases come on you, you don't need a healer. It's unnecessary. You're healthy. So what does the verse mean? Well, in fact, this is a proof that the word in the Hebrew doesn't mean healer. The word in the Hebrew is rofei. Rofei often is translated in dictionaries as doctor. Maybe doctor is a little better because it's a little more general. It's a little more flexible. So in order to bring out what I want, I'm going to read to you a Rashi. Does anybody here understand Hebrew? Do? A little bit. Okay. You don't read Rashi letters, right? You can't see it inside. Okay, so I'll read it and I'll explain it to you. There are two moves in the Rashi, so you have to just sort of be patient till we get to the whole thing. It says, I will not place upon you. Lo asim b'lecha. It says, I will not place on you. And Rashi says, Ve'im asim, and if I do, yeah, I said I won't, but if I do, meaning when I said I won't, that might not be absolute. It might not be absolute. Very, very often, expressions that in Hebrew, in our sources, that look absolute, aren't meant as absolute. So, the Torah says, God says, I will not bring them on you. Rashi says, here's what it means, or part of what it means. If I do, hare hu kalo sama, I'll make it as if it did not attack you. Because I am Hashem, your doctor. So, if in fact you do get sick, I'll take care of it, and you'll recover in such a way that there'll be no trace of it. You'll be completely healed. because I am your Rofe. Well, it sounds like Rashi's doing exactly what the translation said. He wants Rofe to mean healer, and he's quite aware of the fact that if you don't get sick, you don't need to be healed. So he puts in this clause. God told us he won't put the sicknesses on us. But it's not absolute. It could happen. And if it happens, then the healing will come into place, because then you will be sick and you'll need someone to heal you. That's what Rashi says. And then he adds two crucial words. Zeu midrasho. This is the midrash on the verse. It's not its plain, literal, literary, logical meaning. So the reader breathes a sigh of relief. Oh, this is something that you get by analyzing essences of words or associations of words and so forth and so on. But that's not the direct meaning. So what is the direct meaning? So Rashi goes on. Ulefi pshuto, ki ani Hashem rofecha, for I am Hashem your doctor, melamedcha Torah u'mitzvos, I teach you Torah and mitzvos, leman tinatzel mehem, in order that you should be saved from those sicknesses. In other words, I'm teaching you preventative medicine. If you study Torah and you do mitzvos, you won't get sick. And then he gives the example of a person who the doctor says to him, if you eat these things and take these precautions, you won't get sick. So what Rashi is telling us is that the pshat, the direct meaning, includes that the idea of rofei, which could be doctor, includes the idea of preventative medicine. It's not only healing. The midrash, because rofei is usually associated with healing, the midrash carries another implication that if in fact you get sick, he will in fact heal you. But that's not the direct meaning. Direct meaning is that doctor, in our vocabulary, carries both meanings. That it will heal you when you're sick and prevent you from getting sick by teaching you how to maintain your health. I read once that in ancient China, there were doctors, and each person had a doctor who was his personal doctor, and he paid the doctor as long as he was healthy. When he gets sick, he stopped paying the doctor. There's a certain wisdom in that, isn't there? In our medical system, it pays the doctors that people should be sick. Just imagine if you waved the magic wand and no one was sick, what would the doctors do? They would starve. So the medical profession in our Western society has a vested interest in there being people who are sick. The Chinese model, if it is true, has the opposite thing, where the doctor's vested in people being healthy. The minute you get sick, you stop paying him. When he wants to eat, he's got to make people healthy. There's a certain logic that has being a superior system. At any rate, that's important to know, that the Torah believes in preventative medicine, not just getting sick and then taking measures. Okay, yeah.
Is there I know there probably is, but right after that, it goes into the precious of the man. Is there like a parallel between the two?
Well, the man was a kind of food from which certainly didn't carry any susceptibility to any of the types of diseases that come from eating food that's spoiled or too much of one kind and so forth and so on. So there's that connection for sure. Okay, so now let's take a look at the verse itself, the blessing itself. Be arofei, meaning, as I've just explained, both preventative medicine and healing. And then we will be healthy, not healed, on the basis of what I just told you. Then it says, save us and we will be saved. That's definitely people who are sick, injured. So you have both ideas. And then it says, for you are our praise. Somehow, And by the way, it's a subject which pays attention. When anyone says something to the Creator and gives a reason, there's a presumption that this reason is something that the Creator cares about. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a reason for him to do something. When you have in the Tanakh, and you have it several times, where prophets, so to speak, argue with the Creator and say, if the Creator says, I'm going to do X, they say, no, you shouldn't do it because of ABC. Those are very valuable passages. This, at least, is what the prophet thought God cares about, so that when the prophet mentions ABC, there's a chance that God will do differently. And it's even more valuable when, in one instance that I know, there may be others I don't know, where the prophet says, please don't do it because of ABC, and God says back, I won't do it because of A. Meaning, the prophet's understanding that B and C would be relevant reasons was wrong. Only A was a relevant reason. Would you like to know the name of the prophet? The name of the prophet is Moses. Because when he prayed to God after the sin of the spies, and God said to him, I'm going to have this whole generation die, and I'll make a new nation out of you. And Moses said, don't do it because of ABC. God says, I've forgiven according to your word, singular, even though there were three claims made. And the oral tradition tells us which one it was that was relevant and was the reason for which God moved to another strategy. And by the way, it was, what will the non-Jews say? What reputation will you get in the world if you do it this way? So here we're being told, we're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please preserve our health or heal us from our sicknesses because you are our praise. That's not obvious. So we praise him. So what? Why would that be a reason why he should either maintain our health or heal our sicknesses? So the answer here is not too deep. The curse on the snake in the Garden of Eden, in addition to losing his legs, was, what's said there is, you shall eat dirt. So the commentators ask, is that a curse? If he can eat dirt, he's surrounded by food. It's unending. He has an infinity of food right next to him. Is that really a curse? And the answer, yes, it is. And they contrast it with the status of the Jewish people in the wilderness where they ate manna. It fell every night except Friday night, and it was eaten the following day. And when they went to bed at night after supper, there was nothing left. And the moral is, God wants to hear from you. He wants you to pray for your food. And when you go to bed with nothing left, then you have God in mind. Because without manna falling tomorrow, you're going to be in serious trouble. And by giving the snake plentiful, immediate food, what he's saying to him is, I don't want to hear from you. That's why I'm giving it to you, so you won't bother me. I don't want to have an interaction with you. Now we have to ask, why do people get sick? Well, of course, there are lots of reasons. But one of the reasons is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the person to turn to him and pray to him. That's what he wants. People are coasting through life and everything's fine and they're not bothered and they're not conscious. So God says, I'm going to wake you up. So you'll pay attention to things that are important. So we say here, if that is the reason for my sickness, I'm telling you that I'm already there. You see, I'm asking you now. I'm asking you now. That's the reason for you to remove it from me. That's the implication here of this being the reason why we're saying, asking him the reason why we think that asking him should make a difference. Then it says, bring complete recovery for all our ailments. And I have seen a commentary here. What's the all? And that includes not only physical ailments, but emotional ailments, and mental ailments. There are various things that compromise people's functionality. And we take emotional needs as seriously as we take physical needs. So, the Gemara says that when you're giving charity, the verse has two words in it. One is that he should have what he lacks. What he's missing, what he lacks. And it says it twice. And the Gemara comments, you give him what he's missing, what he needs, what's interfering with his function, but not more than that. You restore his functionality. And then it says, in some cases, that might include giving him a horse to ride on and a servant to serve him. Now, let's think of ancient Babylon, 2,000 years ago. If you owned a horse and had a servant, you were upper class. You were doing well. I should spend my charity money to purchase a horse and to rent a servant for this guy? Why wouldn't my charity money be better spent on somebody else's food and drink? And the answer is, we're talking about a person who grew up in luxurious circumstances and now is living with very modest circumstances, and he's psychologically burdened by that. And the psychological burden deserves my charity resources just as a person's physical needs. Now, of course, if the physical needs, without that he's going to die, and without the psychological resources, he's going to be unhappy, obviously the possibility of death is more important than the possibility of being unhappy. But there are people who are unhappy because of physical needs, and others because of psychological needs. Psychological needs are just as legitimate. So I think when it says all our ailments here, it includes the psychological ailments as well. In other words, you can imagine two people. One person can't spend much time studying because he's so poor that he's got to spend a lot of his time earning money. And another person can't spend a lot of time studying because of ADHD. They just can't do it. They both have impediments to their ability to study. And both impediments are just as legitimate. And there is this tendency, I have a whole share in this, I'm not going to give the whole thing now, but the tendency to say, you're nervous and you're feeling the pressure to move around and do something else. Get a grip on yourself. We don't say that to a person who has a migraine headache. Oh, migraine headache is physical pain. Okay, so what? This person's in emotional turmoil. Why isn't that just as legitimate? Why isn't that just as debilitating? Why isn't that just as much an excuse for what he does? But there is this prejudice. These words here are speaking against that prejudice. What I quoted from the Gemara is speaking against that prejudice. So you are our God, the King, faithful and compassionate, Rofe, doctor. That's all I have to say about this particular blessing. Okay, let's move on to the next. What do they call it? The year of prosperity. Let's see the text and I'll talk about it a little bit. Bless on our behalf, O Hashem our God, this year and all its kinds of crops for the good. The blessing, or dew and rain for a blessing, face of the earth, and satisfy us from your bounty. And bless are you like the best of years. Blessed are you, Hashem, who blesses the years. There's a lot here. I want to concentrate for a little while on one word. And that is, it says, satisfy us. Satisfy us. Whenever we ask for physical support, we always use the word satisfy. Sab'enu mituvecha, we say on Shabbos and holidays. Satisfy us from your good. What is the good of physical support? What does the ideal situation of physical support consist in? It consists of being satisfied. And that contrasts with our spiritual life. So let me tell you, in Proverbs, there's a verse which says, Oev kesef lo yizba kesef. A person who loves kesef, which is silver, will never be satisfied with the silver that he has. On that verse, there are two commentaries. One commentary is kesef means money, which it often does. Rashi's commentary says that kesef means mitzvos. So let's take the verse with each commentary and see how we relate to it. You love money, you'll never be satisfied with the money that you have. Is that good or bad? That's bad. You never have enough money, no matter how much you have. The Gemara says, Misheyesh lo mana rotz masayim. Misheyesh lo masayim rotz arba me'os. A person has 100, wants 200. A person has 200, wants 400. My Rabbi Zatzal said, so you see, the more you have, the more you lack. It's a very peculiar situation. Because the more you have, the greater your desires grow. And it isn't linear. If you double what's in the sense, you double what you have, you double your desires. Person with 100 wants 200, but 200 wants 400. And if you double your desires, the gap between what you have and what you want gets bigger and bigger. So the more you have, the more you lack. That's sick. I remember this now. This dates me. I remember when Bill Gates got started. And he was already attracting attention when he had $5 million, and then $10 million, $15 million, $20 million. I began to think, why does he get out of bed in the morning? Can you spend $20 million? What did he spend it on? What did he do with it? $30 million, $40 million, and there he's going. Bill Gates is going. He's going. 50, 60, $60 million. Or maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe it's billion. Billion. You're right. I'm talking billions, right? And then you know what happened? He started to do other things like give his money away. He set up the Bill and whatever her name is, Gates Foundation, giving away billions of dollars because he discovered there's no life in just putting more zeros after your bank account. That's not a life. I thought to myself, he really did something important. He realized that making money isn't a life. I don't know if he realized it from the beginning, but at that point he certainly changed his behavior. So, Oed kesef lo yizba kesef, where kesef means money, is a curse. Now let's try the other pshat. Rashi says kesef there means mitzvos. Someone who loves mitzvos is never satisfied with the mitzvos that he has. Is that good or bad? Good. That's good, because if you've reached a certain spiritual level and you're satisfied, that means you have no motivation to try to do more. Then you might just as well be dead. There's a famous verse in one of the prophets that we say, the Haftorah. The prophet is seeing a vision of heaven, that he's there also, and he's seeing a vision of angels, and God's voice says to him, I have given you walkways among these standing ones. Now, when you walk, you're in motion. You're going from one place to another. These stand. They don't walk. You, I've given the ability to move and to change and to develop and to grow, even among these who don't have that ability. They may have various greatness, but they don't grow. They don't progress. A person who's in motion is because the person will be better off where he's going than where he is now. That's why he's in motion. He's trying to achieve something. So the idea of satisfaction in your spiritual life is poison. Moses says on the last day of his life, my life is over because I can't anymore go out and come in, which means I can't go through transitions anymore. I've reached my maximum. Then there's no reason to continue living in this world. So, satisfaction is a two-pronged idea. Satisfaction in the physical is a blessing, and satisfaction in the in the spiritual would be a curse. Now, let's take the famous verse in Esrei, which has the same word in it also. You open your hand, and according to many translations, which are certainly accurate, you satisfy the desire of every living thing. As if it had written, Masbia Ratzon Kol Chai, instead of Masbia Lechol Chai Ratzon. But there are those who say it's not just poetry, it has another meaning. And what it means is this: you satisfy all living things by giving them ratzon, by giving them will. As if, imagine it had written, Masbia l'chol chai lechem. Then you would say, you satisfy all living things by giving them food. Lechem, by the way, in general means food, not just bread. So here, it's to satisfy all living things by giving them ratzon. I'll explain that in a moment. But now you tell me, in that verse, when it says it satisfies all living things, what kind of satisfaction are we talking about? Physical or spiritual? It's got to be physical. Because that verse is telling us something that God does for us as a blessing, something that's a great good for us. So it's got to be talking about physical. That's a jolt. I heard the somewhat surprise in your voice, because you think of Esrei as talking about the spiritual world, and here all of a sudden, what? It's talking about my bank account? But it's talking about a spiritual attitude towards your bank account. That's what it's talking about. So how do you get to be satisfied with the physical? Well, if you see the physical as an end unto itself, if you see the physical as an intrinsic value, there's no reason to be satisfied. If money has intrinsic value, the more you have, the better off you are. You have more of something that's of real value. But if something has only instrumental value, then you measure the amount of money you have against your purposes, and you say, how much do I need to do the things that I want to do or need to do? 600,000? Okay, so when I get 600,000, someone offers me another free dollar. I say, no, I don't need it. That's how you get to satisfaction, by measuring it by something outside. Now, one of God's names is spelled Shin, Dalet, and Yud. And it's explained by the oral tradition, among many explanations. When the world was created, it went through a period of expansion. No, this isn't the Big Bang. Expanding meaning more energy, more matter, more material, and more space, and then it stopped, which certainly isn't the Big Bang picture. And it stopped when God said to the world, die, enough. So the picture you have here is the world is expanding, and God is observing this. And then when it gets to a certain point, he draws a line and says, enough. How do you say enough? Because the world that's growing is a world that's supposed to serve a certain purpose. And you measure the world, the contents of the world against the purpose. And then you say, that's all that's necessary for the purpose. So when this world grows, that's the world which is only a means. And that's how you get satisfaction. You get satisfaction by saying, I have enough of what I need. I remember hearing a story many years ago. Someone in New York City was trying to get to the mountains for Shabbos. In the summertime, they have bungalows, and they're trying to get. And it was very late, and he was running out of gas. So he pulled to a gas station, and he says, I want 6 gallons. It's a 20-gallon tank. And the gas station attendant says, why shouldn't I fill it up? I'm in a hurry. 6 gallons will get me there. I don't want to spend the next extra 7 minutes waiting for it to to fill up. I don't want that. Because I don't need it. I need 6 and I need to get there. So that's the idea of being satisfied with the physical. Now, the verse in Esrei says, how does that satisfaction come about? Because God plants in each person God's own will. We have the capacity to do God's will. That's planted within us. And if we identify with God's will, then we're identifying with the one who said to the world, it's enough. And with that will, we'll be able to achieve satisfaction in the physical. So that's what we are talking about here. And every time we ask for physical support, it's always with the word satisfaction. So when you think of, will I get a raise, won't I get a raise, and so on and so on, think in terms of the ultimate goal, which is satisfaction. And as they will tell you, this is pablum, right, that if there's a gap between your desires and what you have, there are two ways of closing the gap. One is to increase what you have, and the other is to decrease your desires. In both ways, you can achieve satisfaction. And one of the things that I tell people when you come to Israel and you go around, go out on being invited for a Shabbos meal or for a whole Shabbos and see how people live here, you get a different vision of how you can live. The vast majority of the Israeli population lives under what America would call the poverty line, or at least the religious population lives under that line. Certainly we live in overcrowded housing. No one ever dreamt of a separate bedroom for each child. No one ever dreamt of that. So, and no carpets on the floors, and no trips to Italy, and how do you manage? How do you get along? Many of us don't have automobiles. And yet, you don't find people here committing suicide or taking drugs. So, there are exceptions, of course, but not what you would expect from an economic disaster. You wouldn't expect that. Indeed, I saw studies in this country of longevity, and the religious population has a longer life expectancy than the non-religious population, and more happiness and less psychological problems. And I saw psychologists report this statistic in wonder. How could that be? So many of them are impoverished. How could it be they're psychologically so healthy? Mm-hmm. Guess what? Dollars isn't the only thing that's relevant to psychological health. Indeed, dollars can be your undoing. Read stories of people who win the lottery. For the majority of people who win the lottery, it ruins their lives. Really shocking. They can't handle it. They can't deal with it. So, that's the idea of satisfaction. That's really what you want to ask for with respect to material support. Now let's go back to we're together? Let's go back to, yeah.
So when Rabbi Malach uses that name, the one that you said, Shindal, he uses it a lot. What does he mean by that? Like it's enough?
No, so that's why I said carefully, we have a recording, I said carefully that the word has many different meanings, and I'm using this one to make this point. It has other meanings as well. The verb, the root also connotes destruction. And there are certain routines that run the world, and there are circumstances under which the outcome should not be determined by those routines. And there, that name indicates being shoded, means shattering those routines to get a different outcome. Shoded, the ma'arechet, the structure of routines that's running the world. So I don't know of a case, but because I don't know Dovid until fluently, where he uses it with this meaning. That's another meaning that's very important, and there are others as well. So you have to look up each one. Okay, so now it talks about blessing this year. Bless a year is like the best years. There's a unit of year that's very important for the idea of this blessing. Well, in a certain sense, decisions about how the world shall run are made year by year. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the days of Din, and typically those are the times in which those decisions are made. Okay, the decisions have loopholes and open elements and applications, and there's a difference Rav Yosef in the Gemara, not Rav Yosef in the Gemara. Okay, it's a lot of complications. I'm not going to get into the details, but you can take the year as a unit because of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Certain decisions are made for the year: rainfall and pestilence and destructive forces. Those decisions are made to a certain extent on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Baal Tanya, one of the great Hasidic leaders, saw in the verbiage of this blessing, a very interesting insight. and he made a very interesting application of it. Let's imagine someone saying this blessing, this praying, the last mincha before Rosh Hashanah. The year has in it left 30 minutes. The year has in it left 30 minutes. And he says, please, Hashem, bless this year. Okay, it's still this year, and in 30 minutes got to be a new year. But, isn't that a little grandiose to talk about blessing a whole year when you call the whole 30 minutes a whole year? So he said the following. The Baal Tanya said the following. Sometimes what you do at one time can have an effect about other times. Two crucial times that have that kind of effect at the beginning or the end of a process. We say, when you set out a process, you give it a certain identity, and there's a certain natural tendency to follow the way it was set out at the beginning. The Kotzker Rabbi said, there's a phrase in Chazal, all beginnings are hard, and he said, not only should you understand it the natural way, that they're difficult, but make it hard. Like when you build a house, first you dig down and you lay a foundation, and the foundation has to be really solid because it's got to carry the whole building. So make sure the beginning is really solid. If you do that, then there's natural, what you call in physics, inertia, for it to carry on that way, because that's the start that it got. This can also happen at the end. If you come to the end of a process, let's say it's a process of repeating something over and over again, something you do daily or weekly, and you realize you're coming to the end, and you think, boy, this is really an important subject. Did I really pay attention to it? Did I really focus on it in the appropriate way? I wish I had done it better. But at least the last 3 out of the 100, I'm going to put myself into those. I'm going to put myself into those and do them the way they should be done, and hope that will reflect at least on my understanding of the importance of the whole group, even though I didn't really accomplish that in the previous stages of the year, and that also can have an effect. So the Baal Tanya said, here, this is the last mincha, the last prayer of the whole year. But when he thinks back over the year, he thinks back over the afternoon prayers, or the prayers in general, and he thinks, I said these words so many times, I want to retroactively elevate all of those previous prayers. It can have an effect. And from this, he developed a general rule. As you're coming to the end of the year, the last element in each category should be done with a special emphasis. The last Shabbos. Okay? There are 50 so many Shabbos in a year, leap year, regular year. But this is the last Shabbos. Maybe the other Shabbos you didn't put in the kind of investment that you want. The last time you put on tefillin. The last time you say Hallel. When is that? Well, if you include Chatzi Hallel, it will be Rosh Chodesh Elul. If you don't include Chatzi Hallel, it was Shavuos. So then on Shavuos you have to think, this is the last whole Hallel I'm saying for the whole year. And think, wow, so there's something going on there, and it should be given a special emphasis. If you do that, you'll find lasts. Only talking about things that happen multiple times, not things that happen once a year. You'll find things even before Shavuos that happen multiple times, and you have the last chance. And then, so as you come towards the end of the year, these things bunch up. There's the last Sunday, last Monday, last Tuesday, the last benching. They bunch up, and it gives the end of the year a special focus, a special elevation, because what you want to do is show your real attitude, the attitude that you didn't manifest clearly and consistently during the year, but it's the attitude that you have towards the importance of what you're doing. That's one element of the idea of seeing it in terms of a year. Now, it says, satisfy us from your bounty. The literal Hebrew is from your goodness. And I think there's a double meaning here. In philosophy, we call this either a transparent or opaque context. First of all, where I want satisfaction to come from? Well, I don't want to come from illegal, illicit means. I want it to be your divine providence, the way you want it to be, coming to me. But that's true. But there's another dimension. The satisfaction in it will be from the fact that it's your bounty to me. That's where the satisfaction will come from. It's not just that I need enough food and I have enough food so that I enjoy my meals. No. The idea is Ezehu Ashir. Who is he who is rich? Hasamech b'chelko. He rejoices in his portion. So again, that can be read two ways. You have a portion, okay, be happy with what you have. You earned $65,000, okay, be happy with $65,000. You could read it that way. But you could also read it as, be happy with the fact that it's your portion. You have it because the Kodesh Baruch Hu chose this for you. He assigned this to you. He put this as his contribution to what you need spiritually to do what you need to do now. When you feel cared for in that way, a great deal of the simcha is in the fact that he's providing for me. Not just that it came and it's enough for me, and where it came from isn't relevant. And by the way, this is a general human theme. I saw studies of people who are suffering, let's say burns, serious burns in a hospital, and the medical protocol is to put a salve on once an hour. And there are machines that can do that, like little robots that can put the salve on. But they found out that if it's done by a robot, the healing is not nearly as good, because what heals is also the fact that someone cares about me. And if it's a relative, it's even better. Someone cares about me. This person loves me. That's part of the healing. So here too, I think the Sabena Mituvecha, it's from the fact that it is your bounty that you chose for me that gives me the sense of satisfaction. And that's that blessing. Are we together? Okay. Now comes the ingathering of the exiles. Sound the great shofar for our freedom. Raise the banner to gather in our exiles. And gather us together from the four corners of the earth. I puzzled about this for a while. You imagine the Messiah coming and attracting attention. Well, you have two metaphors here, auditory and visual. Sound the shofar and raise the banner. Let me ask you, if you're trying to attract attention, which is more effective, raising a banner or sounding a shofar? Sounding a shofar, obviously. That's why when you have to attract the attention of people, the stimulus is auditory. There are sirens. They don't put flags in the sky because almost no one will see them. Okay. So now we have both here, and they're both based on verses. So somehow both of them have a role. I thought was, why not start with raise the banner? Raise the banner will be effective for people who are looking in the right direction. The people who are already oriented correctly. After that, then you could blow the shofar to get in everybody else. So I couldn't understand why the order is the way it is here. So thinking about it more, I thought, well, maybe there's no appeal to an elite here. We're not trying to say first for the elite and then for everybody else. No, we want the first stimulus to be something that's ubiquitous. Everybody gets it. Well, if everybody gets it, then what's the point of raising the banner afterwards? It must be that after you hear, and after you're alert, and after you're focused, seeing has an effect that adds to it. And I think that's much more likely to be the right understanding here. You understand from the fact that I'm speculating that I didn't see any commentaries which talked about the order. And there are at least 300 commentaries on that siddur. I didn't read them all. So if there's stuff out there that's wonderful, please inform me about it. I would love to know it. Now, once you start thinking about hearing and seeing, there are interesting associations. In the Babylonian Talmud, when there's an invitation to a discussion about a topic, the invitation is Toshma, come and hear. In the Jerusalem Talmud, the invitation is To Chazi, come and see. In the Zohar, the invitation is To Chami, which also means come and see. So that's very different. Now, the Babylonian Talmud, Babylon is associated with darkness. God caused me to dwell in dark places, and that's Babylon. When you're in a dark place, you can't communicate visually because it's dark. So you have to talk. The fact that you communicate by talking indicates that the place is dark. What are some differences between communicating auditorily and communicating visually? Actually, when I was in graduate school, I had to take a course in aesthetics, which is a dreadfully backwards area of philosophy. And some interesting remarks were made. Auditory communication requires memory because the words come one at a time, and any significant communication needs a lot of words. Visual communication can be almost instantaneous. Look around the room. How long does that take? 2.5 seconds. And you basically see the contents of the room or look at a picture. So it doesn't require memory in the same sense. Since it requires memory, it requires processing. He said this here, he said that there. He used the same word twice. Is it really the same? Does it have the same meaning? Does it mean the same thing? He repeated this. Why did he repeat that? Why did he keep going? So on and so on. That kind of processing, which is intrinsic to getting an auditory message, can be absent from a visual understanding altogether. We say seeing is believing. We don't say hearing is believing because there are lots of pitfalls in hearing. So seeing can be almost instantaneous. Seeing creates a comprehensive picture, not universal with every detail, but much more comprehensive, and it gives you much greater certainty. It has many superiorities over communicating with auditorily. The fact that with the auditory requires mental involvement and processing the whole time is also, in a certain sense, an advantage that the auditory has over the visual. I remember when I was first introduced to the idea of analyzing paintings, I don't know what they were talking about. My eyes are fine, Baruch Hashem. I can see the painting. Yeah, but you don't understand what you're seeing. I had no clue what was going on. Then someone helped me to a great extent. First wife helped me to some great extent to understand painting. I saw a lot of analysis could be done, but you're not aware of it. You don't think of it. You have to be taught to do it. Okay, so now the idea is the sound of the shofar could be that which attracts your attention, but the sound of the shofar is only a sound. It's not words. It communicates by its drawing attention, that's all. There's no processing going on. Either you know that this shofar means the Mashiach or you don't. It doesn't require processing. So here, the step up to the visual is to add a gigantic amount of information. And you see the banner waving, and you see what's on the banner, and you see where it's waving from, and then you see people gathered around the banner. You get a lot more information than you got before. So that could be the graduation of the order here. First you hear to attract your attention, that's all it does. and then visually you are absorbed into the information. That's one thing. The other thing, which I'm just going to introduce today, and I'll talk about tomorrow to a much greater extent, talks about for our freedom. And I've mentioned to you that when you have one concept with several Hebrew words that apply to that concept with different nuances, that's very special because Hebrew has this very, very small vocabulary. And very often you have a Hebrew word and you'll have 20 English words which sculpt out various nuances of the concept, and in Hebrew you can't do that. You can do it by saying a whole paragraph, but you can't, there are no single words that do it. There are several different words in Hebrew that mean freedom. One is the word that's used here is cherus. Another word is chofesh. Another word is dror. Those words are not semantically related at all, and they have quite a matter of difference in their semantics or application. So here the word that's used is cherus. And I will just point out, as my Rebbe pointed out to me 40 years ago, the letters of cherus, ches, resh, saf, are the same words as the word chorus, which means engraved, like engraving on stone. So it will be worth our while to try to figure out what freedom would have to do with engraving on stone. Superficially, they look like very contrasting ideas. Something that's free can move at will, can change, can grow, develop. And something that's engraved in stone is absolutely static. It's absolutely fixed. It would seem to be, in their connotations, opposite ideas. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about the different words that there are for freedom in the Hebrew language.